This is Mr. Huff, and I want to go through a real quick example of modeling a nose cone for 3D printing. So I've got some specific numbers. I'll have these kind of measured out for you. But what I was going to show you is how to design an Ogive nose cone, and you can see the mathematical description here. If you open any of these, like the parabolic and power series and that sort of thing, all of these have some sort of math-related description. So these are some of the default values that we'll be looking at. Their recommended size is 4.125. So what I would expect is you go through and model this, and then you come back here and change it according to your model. We don't have PLA as a choice in here, but it's going to be real similar to polystyrene, close enough for us anyway. So that's all I want to say about that. So we're going to design an Ogive. When we're at the end, it will look a lot like this. So let me kind of rotate that. So you can see it has a shoulder. It's going to go down into the body tube. It's hollowed out. It comes to a nice point, okay? This should give us reasonable performance. Because it's 3D printed, the rough surface may add a little bit of drag, but the overall shape should be just fine. If you wanted to paint it with something like fingernail polish to smooth it, that would probably work out well as also. All right, so let's start a part. So I'm going to go into Onshape. I'm set with default for inches so that we can go straight into Open Rocket for our design. And I'll talk about exporting it at the end. All right, so I'm going to model this on the front plane. I'm going to put a sketch right here. And then we're going to hit the letter N for normal to plane and P to hide everything else. The first thing I'm going to do is grab a line. And this is going to be a solid line. I'm going to start at the origin and just go straight up. And let's put about, 6 inches is probably on the outside of what you'll design. And that is going to be our revolve axis. I'm going to drag this dimension to the other side. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add 2 boxes here to define the part that goes into the rocket and then a place to connect our nose cone to make the cone at the top. So I'm going to choose a 2-point rectangle, make it a construction line, and I'm going to click at the origin, drag it out, and click somewhere for this dimension. We may need to refine this a little bit as we print, but I found that about 0.93 inches is our target value for the cone. So we're going to put 0.93 divided by 2 because 0.93 is our diameter, and we need to divide that by 2 for the radius. And then this depth is going to be 0.8 is good. So what this is deciding is how deep it goes into the rocket, and this is deciding the diameter, okay? Going to hit escape a couple of times. We're going to move these measurements where they're easy to spot, okay? We're going to do that same thing again, 2-point rectangle, and turn that to a construction line. And then go out here, and this is going to be our outer diameter. And this worked really well for my 3D prints. It's going to be 0.99, divide that by 2. And that's going to be the shoulder right there. And then for the height, if you just do 0.5, that's plenty. So really, this is our critical dimension right here. This is deciding how much is resting on top of the body tube when you print this. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So as we print these, we may refine these numbers a little bit, but this gets us started. So another thing, once we have this modeled, we can change these numbers pretty easy. This is the one that's going to be problematic. If you have it less than that, it's going to be really loose. If we go up too much, it's going to be so tight that it won't slip in there. So we'll adjust with pieces of masking tape. All right. Let's add the nose part, and then we'll do our lines. So right now I'm going to choose the center point arc. And I'm going to click, let's zoom out a little bit. I'm just going to click kind of out here in space. That is our origin. And then I'm going to go to zoom in this outer point on that line. Bam, right there. And then I'm going to drag it up until it intersects this line. So we want it connected to that. Now, another thing we want to do is we want to use the tangent constraint, and we're going to click this curve and this construction line. And what that's going to do is make these tangent at this point. And that's the thing about an Ogive nose. The top of the nose is going to be a curve that has a specific radius, and that radius is tangent to the outside of the body tube, okay? And that's what makes it an Ogive. Now, watch what you need to do. I'm going to hit escape a couple of times. If you move this radius point, if you move it closer, you can see it's rounding off more, and if you move it further out, it's making your the nose cone longer. So and once you get this done, you can determine the length of your nose with a quick dimension between, let's say that, I'm just going to pick a point like right there. Now, if I want to know how long that is, I can go in here and zoom in. I'm going to measure the distance from here to the shoulder, and right now that is 1.56 inches. So that's something you'll need to know so that you can model that. I don't recommend putting that there because you want to be able to move that radius. I guess if you wanted it to be 3, we're going to make a 3-inch nose cone. So we're going to put a dimension right here from this line to this point, and let's put 3 in there, and it should move my radius point way out here, and that's going to be a 3-inch nose cone. All right? So we're just going to run with that for now. No, we're not done with the sketch. So the other thing we have to do is, these are all construction lines. We need to fill these in. So I'm going to click on my line tool. I'm going to connect this point to this point, and this point to this point. If you wanted, you could click inside here and make it taper a little bit, but this is not going to be, it's not going to be necessary to do that. My original design was a lot more complicated. We're trying to simplify it. When it turns gray, you know you have closed all of that up. So now I'm going to hit check, and I have my sketch. Now we're going to do a revolve. First thing we want to do is we're going to revolve a solid, and I'm going to choose all of that sketch. And then the revolve axis is going to be that first line that I drew. And now we have a nose cone. Make sure it says solid, not surface. Then we're going to use the shell tool. I'm going to try to make this a single thickness print. So that means that I need to make this shell thickness in inches, 0.016. And that is about the thickness of one pass on the 3D printer. So if you do multiples of that, you can get it up to thicker and thicker ones. But for this, I'm just going to do that. Again, I will have some recommended ranges for you to use. What this is going to produce is a single thickness print. It will be exactly one pass around for the whole thing. All right, so there we have our nose cone. Next thing is, when we get ready to download this, we're going to go down here and right click and rename this, and we're going to call it nose cone, and this one is 3 inches. All right, and I'll have some sort of naming for you to use, but now we're going to choose export, and we want it to be an STL file right here. Binary, we want to change the units to millimeters because all of my 3D printers talk in millimeters. Resolution needs to be fine, and we're downloading it. So once you download that, save it on your computer somewhere, and I have a Google Drive set up. It's tiny.cc/printme3, and you can drop it in there, and then now I can find it, and we can print that. So that is a real quick run through of how to design your very own nose cone, and that's enough for now.